Hi, and welcome to Buddhism 101. This video is going to cover the Four Noble Truths. So, what are the Four Noble Truths? Well, the Buddha's first sermon after his enlightenment centered on the Four Noble Truths. And the Four Noble Truths are the foundation of Buddhism. So, the truths are the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the end of suffering, and the truth of the path that frees us from suffering. So let's look at one truth at a time. So, the truth of suffering. This is the first noble truth, and often it is translated as life is suffering. Many people new to Buddhism tune out as soon as they hear this, but the Pali word dukkha also refers to anything that is temporary, conditional, or compounded of other things. Even something precious and enjoyable is dukkha because it will end. Related to the nature of life is the nature of self. Are we not also temporary, conditional, and compounded of many parts? We can understand that life is impermanent, but are we also impermanent? The Buddha taught that before we can understand life and death, we must understand the self. So, what is the self? Um, Among all of the Buddhist teachings, those on the nature of the self are the hardest to understand, yet they are central to the religion. In fact, fully perceiving the nature of the self is one way to define enlightenment. And the Buddha taught that an individual is a combination of the five aggregates of existence, also called the five sakkhanas. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Or the five heaps. These are form, sensation, perception, mindful formations, and consciousness. Various schools interpret the five uh, aggregates or the five heaps differently, but generally the first one is our physical form, the second is made up of our feelings, emotional and physical, and our senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. The third is perception. It takes in most of what we call thinking, conceptualization, cognition, reasoning. It also includes the recognition that occurs when an organ comes into contact with an object. Um, the fourth is mental formation, which includes habits, prejudices, predispositions, our volition or willingfulness is also a part of this one, as is attention, faith, consciousness, conscientiousness, pride, desire, vindictiveness, and many other mental states, both virtuous and non-virtuous. And the fifth is consciousness, is awareness or sensitivity to an object, but without conceptualization. Once there is awareness, the third uh, five heaps, or the third fifth aggregate, might recognize the object and assign a concept value to it, which then goes from there. And so, most important to understand about the five aggregates of self is that they are empty. There's not qualities that an individual possesses because there is no self possessing them. This doctrine of no self is called Atman or Anatta. Very basically, the Buddha taught that you are not an integral, autonomous entity. The individual self, or what we might call the ego, is more correctly thought of as a byproduct of the five heaps. On the surface, this appears to be a nihilistic teaching, but the Buddha taught that if we can see through the delusion of the small individual self, we experience that which is not subject to birth and death. So that basically is what the self is, and that's that's pretty much a more advanced teaching. But the second truth is the cause of suffering. And I'm going to have to actually end it after this one and make another video containing the other two truths. But basically, the truth of suffering is craving or thirst, or desire or attachment. It's basically we're continually searching for something outside of ourselves to make us happy. But no matter how successful we are, we never remain satisfied. The Buddha taught that this thirst, desire, attachment, grows from ignorance of the self. We go through life grabbing one thing after another to get a sense of security about ourselves. We attach not only to physical things, but also to ideas and opinions about ourselves and the world around us. Then we grow frustrated when the world doesn't behave the way we think it should, and our lives don't conform to our expectations. The Buddhist teachings on karma and rebirth are closely related to the second noble truth. Let me see if I actually have enough time. Yeah, I do. Cool. So let me really quick cover the third and fourth noble truth. The third noble truth is the truth of the end of suffering. The Buddhist teachings on the fourth noble truths are sometimes compared to a physician diagnosing an illness and prescribing a treatment. The first noble truth tells us what the illness is, and the second noble truth tells us what causes the illness. The third noble truth holds out hope for a cure. So the truth of the end of suffering is basically the Buddha found a cure. And so the Buddha taught that through diligent practice we can put an end to craving, desire, attachment. Ending the hamster wheel chase after satisfaction is enlightenment, or Bodhi awakened. The enlightened being exists in a state called nirvana. So that's the third noble truth, put very simply. The fourth and last noble truth is the truth of the path that frees us from suffering. Here the Buddha, as a physician, prescribed the treatment for our illness, which is our illness is suffering. But the treatment is the Eightfold Path. So unlike in many other religions, in Buddhism there is no particular benefit to merely believing in a doctrine. Instead, the emphasis is on living the doctrine and walking the path. So that is basically what the Four Noble Truths are. In the next video, I'm going to tell you or discuss the Eightfold Path. So I hope you will join me.